Hello, and happy Monday. What an absolutely robust and whoa, that got louder and louder as I spoke. What an absolutely robust and energetic room. I'm so glad to spend this hour with all of you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in reciting the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? I'd like to welcome Jennifer Hazing for our invocation. Jen?
If you wish, please bow your head in prayer. Lord, thank you for walking with us through the seasons of our lives, for the winter when we are held safe in your arms through the darkness, for the hope of spring as we are filled with new promise and life, for summertime full of warmth and color, and for autumn days as leaves fall to seed new growth. You are always with us. In all seasons, we thank you for calling us to this community to live our lives and do the work of Rotary. Grant us wisdom to discern what is for our own betterment and the betterment of all mankind. We thank you for our time together. We pray that this food will nourish us and fortify us to help in our needs and in serving the needs of others. May peace and goodwill abide among us this day and in all seasons. In your name, amen.
I would like to welcome all of our guests to Downtown Rotary. Thank you for joining us today, and I would also like to thank our greeters. Whether you're a guest or you've been a member of Rotary for 10, 15 plus years, when you come in, take a moment to meet the greeters. Typically, they are new Rotarians who have been a member for 12 to 18 months at the most, and so it's a great opportunity for them to meet you and for you to take a moment and introduce yourself, so I encourage you to do that. I also want to welcome our junior Rotarians and ask them to stand. We have Renna Moss from Sioux Falls Christian, Lena Vandewater from Jefferson, and speaking shortly is Leah Bolsler from Lincoln. Gracing our stage not once but twice today is Jen Hazing, and boy, does she have a couple of fun More Than Monday announcements.
Thank you, President Cindy. As the chair of the More Than Mondays committee, we would like to invite you to join us for a few special events in the coming weeks. First, a very hot ticket. Tuesday, October 25th, Riccardo Tarablisi is excited to welcome the club to his new restaurant, Maribella. It will open to the public on November 4th, so we have a sneak peek exclusively for Rotarians. There is a sign-up sheet in the back if you'd like to sign up, or you can sign up by emailing Angie as well. The second opportunity is a service opportunity to deepen your relationship with fellow Rotarians and serve the community. Immediately following our club meeting on Monday, November 21st, at 1:30, we'll volunteer at Feeding South Dakota from 1:30 to 4 that afternoon in recognition of great community need and our opportunity to continue in our path to the four-way test. So please consider joining us October 25th, on Tuesday, and Monday, November 21st.
Jen, thank you, and I hope Rotarians take advantage of one, if not both of those opportunities. A few weeks ago, we had a number of downtown Rotarians attend our district conference. Kurt is with us today, Kurt Laudenbach, to give a recap of what took place at the district conference. Kurt.
Thank you, Cindy. Glad to see we have a new microphone here. So, how many of you have ever attended a district conference? Can I see a show of hands? Several of you have. It was really pretty enlightening, and I recommend that if you get the opportunity to attend, because it was really kind of an enjoyable couple days, and it's a a great way to connect to everything Rotary and get to know the organization a little bit better. So I saw from our group, Dave Eastland was there, Steve Sikorsky. Is Steve here? I didn't see Steve, but Steve Sikorsky was there. Matt Dittmanson was here, was there as well. And just wanted to point out that speaking of Steve, I think I mentioned this one other time, but for those of you that missed it, Steve was recognized as the District Rotarian of the Year, which is a pretty high honor out of basically a 4-state area of Rotarians that were recommended for that. So kudos to Steve, and then our own Tony Burke. I almost forgot who you were, Tony. Tony was recognized as Area 8 Rotarian of the Year. So for all the work that he's done on Sioux 52, he was recognized for that. So a couple of our own were on front stage for that. We had a couple of international speakers. Susie Howe, who's a Rotary International Director, was a speaker. Greg Pod, who's a Rotary Foundation trustee. And then a keynote speaker was Boyd Renner, who is a Navy SEAL. And very, very interesting story in terms of his experience as a Navy SEAL, and then how he kind of connected that to business applications. So that was good. Then we held a number of breakout sessions, everything from human trafficking to fundraising, member engagement, et cetera. One of them that I thought was very enlightening that you'll hear more about, I think, in the weeks ahead, Cindy, is St. Jude School. It's a school in Tanzania that was created by a young lady from Australia. They find the best and the brightest and poorest kids in Tanzania, and then they get tuition paid to this private school that really sets their life on a different trajectory than what they were probably headed for otherwise. So very, very, very encouraging and heartwarming story that we'll have an opportunity to participate in as well. Kind of the takeaways that I got from the conference is that our local organization is pretty low in terms of contribution to Rotary International. There's a club there that's recognized as their per capita contribution was $1,000. Now, granted, there are some smaller clubs, and with donations that can be skewed, but we're kind of low when it comes to the Rotary Foundation contributions. But we are the envy of the district because we continue to grow. Obviously, we're a large club. We continue to build on the great things that this organization has done throughout the years, and we're kind of the envy of the entire district. And then one thing that I picked up was really the focus on becoming a Rotarian versus being in Rotary. And there's a difference. And some of you have really embarked on that journey, and I think you'll have an opportunity to do so as well going forward. And then I guess the last takeaway is that, again, I'm going to touch on it. The St. Jude was really very impressive and an incredible return on investment there for the knowledge and the experience of being part of that organization. So I would really encourage anybody that hasn't been there to consider going next year. It's September 27, 28, and 29 in Yankton. So put that on your calendar, and I'd really encourage you to attend next year. Cindy, thank you.
Kurt, thank you for that thoughtful update. And I love that mindset of, are you a Rotarian or are you a member of Rotary? And even as self-reflection, what was the moment or what was the experience that came to be that switch for each and every one of us? So something to think about as your journey with Rotary continues. Next, we have not one, but two new member inductions. What's kind of fun, so head on this way, fellas. So what's kind of fun about this is that they are both being inducted by our Rotarian, Matt Paulson. So Matt, I'm gonna bring you up first, and you just do it however you want.
I feel like telling me to introduce these guys however I want is a dangerous suggestion. We're going to start with John. Most of you know John as the founder and former CEO of Lemonly. He sold that business to ClickRain about a year ago. Since then, John has been experimenting in the world of NFTs. He has a startup called No Fun Team and is working probably on some other stuff as well. John has been kind of my cohort in the Sioux Falls startup community for years. He's been a great leader to people that want to start businesses. He launched like 1 million cups in 2014. He launched the event called Hey Sioux Falls and has just been a great supporter of the startup ecosystem over the years. So Thank you, John, for that. John's also a graduate of Luther College. He has well, glad there's one. John's got a degree in communications. He's also married to his wife, Paige, who works at Mid-Continent. He has 2 daughters, Margot and Liv. So, John, if you want to come up here and say a couple words.
Thanks, Matt. Well, hey, everybody. I remember the first time I met Matt, 2013, we were starting a new event in town called Startup Weekend. And our mutual friend Will introduced us, and we had lunch at Spezia. And I asked Matt for $2,000 to be a sponsor of the event. Because Matt wasn't that involved in the startup community at that time. He said, I wanted to get more involved and come out. And so I'm grateful for that meeting. So I asked for $2,000, and he said yes so fast that if you're in business development or sales or philanthropy, you immediately say, I should have asked for more, right? And I'm so grateful for that meeting. That sparked a friendship, and we have collaborated. And I feel like Matt and I always push each other, and so I'm really grateful for that. As far as Rotary, I think of the junior Rotarians. October 2003, so 19 years ago, I was a junior Rotarian in Brookings, South Dakota. But the memory that I have of Rotary actually was in this room. So in the fall of 2009, I was a 24-year-old new resident of Sioux Falls and a founder of a brand new company called 9 Clouds. And I spoke to this club about these new things called social media. And at that time, some of you might have been in the room, but at that time, the club, most of the folks probably could have been my grandpa or grandma. And I was telling them about Facebook and this new thing called Twitter, and that they could create videos on YouTube. And I'm not sure if there's ever been a presentation that maybe didn't land with the group. But even though they weren't buying what I was selling, I remember how welcoming and supportive the group was, right? And I spoke in front of every Rotary Club in Sioux Falls. And over the course of the next 13 years of being an entrepreneur, this community, not only of Rotary, but of Sioux Falls, has been so welcoming, so supportive. If anybody here has started anything, started a business or a company, you know that in those early days, the most important thing is just someone who will believe in you, someone who will nudge you to keep going. And so I think about that, and I think about this Rotary Club, how supportive they were. We got this grant to start a business that not only led to 9 Clouds, but the creation of Lemonly and what ended up being, 40 people employed in Sioux Falls. And so sometimes all it takes is someone to just push you and say, go for it, we got this. And so thanks to Rotary for being that, and I'm happy to now hopefully reciprocate that as a member of the club. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. Next up is Alex Jensen. Alex is the CEO of 2 businesses, Max Muscle Nutrition here in Sioux Falls. He purchased earlier this year, I think, and then DACPAC in Woonsocket, which is a contract blending and manufacturing business. He was previously at a business banker at First Premier Bank, and then he got the crazy idea to go by and run a business. So I wonder who spoiled him with that idea. Alex is also a member of the Sioux Falls City Council. I believe he's currently the vice chair. He is a member of First Lutheran Church. He is a USD graduate, for anybody that wants to say go Yotes. Excellent. Is married to his wife, Nikki. And he has 2 sons, Jack and George. So please welcome Alex Jensen.
Well, I told Matt that he should introduce me second so I can hear what John said, but it was just completely intimidating listening to someone that speaks as well as him. So, my background, I'm born and raised in Sioux Falls, and I flat out love this community. I love South Dakota. I served in the legislature for 2 years, and I met a lot of you while serving in that capacity, and now even more here on the city council. So anything that I do is for my community, which is also my family, which is number one, and then all of you who have all been very helpful in serving me as I serve you. Because not many of the good ideas come from my heart or my background, but it's from yours and your thoughts that you've been in this community for a very long time. So I appreciate you guys pouring into me, and look forward to joining your ranks and moving Rotary and good ideas forward for the benefit of people here in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota. So appreciate the membership and look forward to hanging out. So thanks.
We are so glad to have you both in Downtown Rotary. Again, it just is a special time to be a Downtown Rotarian, and I'm glad you're both going to be part of that with us. We have one more speaker before we start our program. I would like to invite Kaylee Etram up to introduce our junior Rotarian, Leah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am excited to introduce you today to Leah Bosler, who is a senior at Lincoln High School. She is involved in a number of things, and you will start to see a theme coming through here. She is involved in competitive cheer, varsity sideline cheer for football and basketball, track and field, National Honor Society, and Science National Honor Society. In the community, she's involved in roller derby, youth group, Sioux Falls World Language Advisory Committee, and she's involved in hiking, backpacking, traveling, and nursing as she is a nurse's assistant at Sanford. She is looking to attend a four-year university to become a nurse in the future, so she's undecided in her locations. There might be some campaigning for you, Leah, as you're in the room today, to become a nurse moving forward. And the $100 that we will be donating in her name will be going to Lincoln High School Cheer. So please give me a warm Rotary welcome for Leah Bosler.
Hello, everyone. If you can't tell, I'm a little nervous, but I'll just pull up my notes here real quick. So, yes, my name is Leah Bosler, and I'm a senior at Lincoln. And I'd like to thank you guys for the invitation to come and share a little bit about myself today. For these past 4 years, I've enjoyed track and field, experimenting with clubs like DECA and so many other activities. But nothing compared to the feeling I got cheering on the sideline for different sports. When I was asked to speak today, I was given several different prompts, things I'm passionate about, things I've learned, a highlight from my high school career. I want to share a little bit about something that I've learned. When you go into high school, which I'm sure most of you remember, you are never sure of the path that lays ahead of you. Some of us are book smart, some of us hate school, some of us are shy, and some of us are not. I never would have imagined what joining the cheer team would teach me, specifically the basketball sideline. My junior year, I got the opportunity to attend both boys and girls basketball state as a cheerleader, not a basketball player. Girls went to Rapid this year, and boys stayed in Sioux Falls. And our first day of girls state, every single school had a student section except for ours. And I was shocked because when I was a freshman, everyone came to basketball state because that was the thing to do. And so our coaches reminded us, you cannot let your crowd, full or empty, determine how you're going to cheer this game. So we understood that. Us 8 girls spent the basketball weekend cheering, enjoying each other's company, and never letting the fact that we didn't have a student section affect us. At the end of the weekend, the girls talked, and we had never had so much fun. A weekend of staying up late, going out to eat, swimming in the hotel pool, and not once did it bother us that our student section didn't show. I have learned a lot throughout high school, but I've grown more as a person than I ever knew I would be able to. I learned that year that the way you choose to carry yourself is what determines your game. Have fun, enjoy the people around you, and don't ever let people who don't care determine how you cheer your game. Thank you.
Leah, thank you so much for that message, and I sure do hope that you find South Dakota to be your home for a very, very long time. We would love to have you here. Now, I would like to invite Jason and Jamie to the stage as I, read just a little bit about today's guest, Jamie Smith. Jamie serves as the minority leader in the South Dakota House of Representatives and is a lifelong South Dakotan. He's a realtor and former educator, as well as a devoted father and husband. His wife of 23 years, Kirsten, is a middle school librarian, and he's the proud father of 2 sons, Jonathan and Isaac. Rounding out his family is Maggie, their golden doodle. We are so pleased to have past President Jason Herbold here to moderate a wonderful conversation. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Whoa. You got me? Yep, okay.
Thank you, President Cindy. Well, Jamie, thank you for joining us, and fellow Rotarians and guests. It is a long tradition of the Downtown Rotary Club to host debates for our candidates thriving or striving for significant positions as representatives of this state. And this year is no different. We attempted to have a debate with all of our candidates, which included Governor Kristi Noem and the Libertarian candidate Tracey Quint, as well as Jamie Smith. Jamie Smith accepted the invitation, so now it's not a debate, it's a conversation. So we thank you, Jamie Smith, for joining us today, and clearly with the audience, there is great interest in this race for governor. And I'm going to start off with a softball, which I'm pretty sure you've thought about in your brain for a long time. Why in the world are you running for governor?
It's an amazing question, and I really never thought, the shortest way to say that is because somebody has to, okay? But we'll say that it came down to January. Nobody on my side of the aisle had stepped forward for a Herculean challenge. And when the person looking in the mirror is the person that has the skills, talents, and ability to do it, at a certain point, you're kind of called, and it was time. It was time to say, yeah, I can do that, and it wasn't time to just be a placeholder, as oftentimes you've seen maybe in my party, but it was time to run to win. And so, because I really am fairly competitive, but people wouldn't know that about me necessarily, and we've been doing that ever since the end of January, beginning of February, and we're sitting here today in a toss-up election, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. You said just now the Herculean challenge. It's no secret to anybody in the state or anybody in this room for sure that the Democratic Party has not held the governor's seat for since the 70s? 50
years, yeah.
And
Tony can tell us the exact number. Is that about right? He has a book on this. If you didn't know, I'm going to plug that book by Tony, by the way.
So I can't imagine what goes into a candidate's mind when taking on such a, in your words, Herculean challenge. Can you talk through perhaps how you arrived at this point to take this effort on, and then explain the emotions that you've kind of been feeling as you've walked through the last 10 months?
Sure. Well, when we came to the point that a decision was made, and we worked through that with my family and the party and all the things that go into that, you have to say, well, how do you really do this, right? And what are we running for? And well, the first answer was easy. What are we running for? We're running for people of South Dakota. So that's an easy answer. That's why you do it. It's not for myself. If I was doing something for my own personal health and mental well-being, I don't know if I'd be doing this. So, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. But the people of South Dakota, we believed wholeheartedly deserve better. And so when you have that belief, then that makes the rest of it easy. And so I've had the great opportunity, and I've been here before, fabulous talks with you before, but the opportunity, as Alex talked about, to the people you meet when you're in the legislature. And so for the last 6 years, I've been able to start building these relationships. And while we look very red on paper, when it comes to who's representing us, South Dakota is a much more purple state. You see it with the referendums and the support you get out there. Having been often referred to as, you're my favorite Democrat, and being the only token Democrat in the room at many different things, you start to realize that, maybe the party doesn't matter so much as the person. And South Dakotans see through that. And so that gave me that thing. So what's happened then and how you felt is it's been an absolutely exhilarating experience. It's been the support levels from all corners of the state that you, sitting here in Sioux Falls, I mean, I knew Sioux Falls would be behind me. I knew this area would be. But when you walk down the street in Hot Springs, South Dakota, and people are rolling down their window and saying, "Go, Jamie," out the window of their car, and recognizing me, I mean, that's weird. That's not normal. But they're excited, you know. Walking down the street in Deadwood a while ago, too. Couldn't make it a block without, you know, and these are folks that just I didn't expect, right? So it's been amazing. If you ever get a chance, by the way, I'd recommend it. Hey, it's a different thing, but it's something they'll never, you can't explain. I mean, running for a legislative office is hard. Running for a statewide office, it's crazy. I mean, but it's great.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the backdrop of your why for running for governor. Now, I have 10 issues that I want to get through.
I have a
today.
lot more issues than 10, so, I mean, a lot of people know this out here, so.
I'm doubtful that we're going to get through them all. But now that I warmed you up, I'd like to
go into it.
get into the issues here and hear your perspective on them. I'm going to start with the recent announcement that the governor is coming forward to eliminate the tax on food. In light of inflation rates that are as high as they've been in 40 years, I think many individuals would appreciate and do appreciate this gesture. Can you expand on your position on the issue, why you think it's important, and how the governor and you how the two of you are working together to eliminate the tax on food?
Well, first of all, there's two issues here. The first one is let's talk about the tax issue. That's number one. We've always thought it was a regressive tax in my party. We've been running this bill for 20 years plus. I don't know, the folks that have been around a lot longer than me, I'm sure Tom Dempster had this bill come across the table at some point when he was in the legislature. Others of you have seen it, so it's not a new thing. I'd let you know, though, what is new, and that's the governor's support of this. The governor's support of this has not been there, all right? And so it's interesting. So why is it important? Because it is a regressive tax, and people of South Dakota, the poorest people, are paying this tax, and we can put money back in their pocket. The other part of it, though, is the fact that this is a political stunt, that the governor has just decided that she's now in favor of this because she knows she needs to have a tax cut somewhere that she hasn't been able to do, so she needs this tax cut. And so in doing so, when asked at Sunshine last week, when she heard that I said, well, then call a special session, she looked at the camera kind of shocked, and she was like, well, I don't have the votes for it. Well, okay, my job would be to work to get the votes. We did get the votes in the House this year to pass it. We got it over to the Senate. But it got a kill order. I'm sure it did, because the way it went down was, you know. Yep, that's right. Yep. So that's inside politics on that one.
All right. Well, thank you. We might come back to that because it is a source of revenue for the state. And
Can I address that right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I am concerned about revenue. And first of all, I think marijuana is going to pass this year, and I think we're going to have a new thing to tax. Some good friend of mine from the past said, we don't need to tax things more, we need more things to tax, and I think we're going to get one. Okay, and I think we're going to end up there with an offset. But we have $115 million extra dollars this year again. There's been a magic $20 to $30 million every year that I've been in the legislature. This is, I don't know, this is money that just, now we have more money than we thought we were going to have. Now, I do remember when Governor Dugard had to take some big slashes because we didn't have that money. So I know that happens from time to time. But we've been budgeting low for quite a while. too. And you know exactly the product coming out the other end and who gets it, all right? That's different than the black market. Talking to people right now about black market marijuana, it's starting to get laced with fentanyl. That'll kill you, okay? I want to know where that comes from. I want to know where the marijuana, talking to my kids who are in high school, I have a senior in high school, it's easier to find marijuana than beer if you're a high school kid. And that's not legal marijuana, that's the black market marijuana, okay? So we have to look at that from a safety perspective. Now, for the rest of it, there will be more funds that come in because of this, and I think those are areas that we can use the tax money from this to help support mental health in our communities and things like that. But there's another part to this too. People often use drugs to medicate, right? And to medicate pain and things like that. And right now people are choosing things like opioids and things like that. And there is evidence that if given the opportunity for legal cannabis use, those can reduce, okay? And so there are lots of different ways to look at that. But most importantly, you need to know that I'm going to implement the will of the voter, but we're going to do it in the most responsible way possible and try to mitigate the unintended consequences that you're speaking of by learning from what other states have done successfully and not.
What have other states learned that that you think will make us, as the state of South Dakota, implement legalized recreational marijuana? What have they learned and what mistakes have they made? And the reason I ask that question is, you cite, the ease in which your children or high school kids can get access to marijuana relative to beer. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, you could get access to beer pretty easily. I mean, I can't imagine it being easier than that.
I'm just going by what they're saying, okay?
Will legalizing recreational marijuana make it more difficult to get access? It seems like it's just another path.
I don't think
of
it's
ease.
more. I think it's a different way to get it, and I think it's safer. And I think that the safety of the product that you're consuming is huge with me, okay? And that's the good things that people have learned throughout this process is how to do that and how to grow it. I think the other thing is we've seen a wave across our country, and we need to decriminalize cannabis, okay, in general, because people are saying, oh, there's nobody in jail because of cannabis use. I met a woman in Washington Springs that was, okay? She was not able to have a job. Now, she was a counselor. She was using cannabis products for a specific reason. She's not able to work in her field because she has a conviction because of cannabis. Okay, and it was a felony conviction for using marijuana. Now, we're seeing this change. You're seeing from a national level. I think we're going to get to a point. I mean, if we want to talk about the ills of one thing and another, then we need to go back and talk about prohibition of alcohol too, because we know all the ills that brings, and we're not going to do that as a society. And so I think we need to look at this in a responsible way, implement it responsibly, and making sure that we do everything we can to make sure that we're as safe as we can be, but yet understanding that people are going to use this.
Thank you. Moving on to another topic, another ballot initiative, Amendment D, Medicaid expansion. The governor claimed in the debate that, the one and only debate that you guys had, that the state could see an increase of up to $80 million a year in additional state expense. I know you spoke to that in that debate. For those that maybe hadn't seen your response to that, how do you address the claim of the governor that it could the state could see increases of up to $80 million a year as a result of Medicaid expansion?
I don't know exactly where she gets her data. She also says we have the #1 economy in the state of South Dakota, which I can't find on paper anywhere either. Okay, so the thing about this is that when I talked to the appropriators and I talked through it, and I know Governor Dugard worked very hard to have this almost become a reality here in the state of South Dakota, the numbers are not the same what we're seeing. It could be as low as a net zero or a gain for the state of South Dakota when we look at it from other angles. So we don't know exactly. Do I know the investment's worth it? Yes. Anytime I've talked to anybody, if you can say, if you find me $1, I'll give you 10. Everybody I've talked to about that from an economic standpoint says, we're going to go look for the $1 so I can get 10. And that's what we're going to get back from the Fed. That's going to keep money in our economy. That's going to turn over in our sales tax base over and over. I don't think we really know the exact implication of what that money in our economy is going to do. But I can tell you the health systems need it. Our nursing homes need it. thousands of South Dakotans need it because health care is important and primary health care is important.
Thank you. We spent a little bit of time talking about just some general budgetary matters, elimination of the tax on food, the cost or potential revenue of recreational marijuana, and now Medicaid expansion. When you look at your priorities and that you want to focus on, if you were elected governor, there will be an increase in expense associated with that. How do you plan on addressing the revenue to pay for those items? And I'm going to ask
Which items are you talking about?
Well, let's just go through. You got expansion of, you want to address nursing homes, long-term
Yep.
care, funding for that. Rural growth, you want low-interest loans and student loan assistance for people that want to enter agriculture. You certainly have addressed teacher pay.
Yep.
So some of those items.
So first of all, revenue sources, okay, we get marijuana coming in. Secondly, spending the money we do have rather than hiding it away in different spots, okay? Then not all these things are actually, some of them are shifts as well. Okay, I really think that we need to do something with corrections for sure. We have a crisis in corrections, but we also have this mental health problem. And why are a lot of people incarcerated? Because they have mental health issues and they're medicating with drugs. So how do we shift that, right? How do you take the money out of here and move it instead to treatment, okay? Moral failing, addiction's not a moral failing. Addiction's an illness. How do we treat it as such? You know, how do we do that? Medicaid expansion may be part of that because it provides more for health care, okay? So these are issues. Nursing home cares, if we expand Medicare in our state, we're gonna be able to have more revenue to help in these certain areas that we're right now writing off as bad debt, by the way, as these institutions. So there's more money in our systems there. I also need to rely heavily on people like Linda Duba and our appropriations committee to make sure that we're prioritizing those funds to go to the right spots, all right? And I trust that they can do that, all right, with the revenues that we have currently in our state. I'm not advocating for new taxes. I'm advocating for taxes on new things if we have those opportunities like marijuana, more things to tax. I'm also advocating that we use that money in an order that I believe is most important, and one of those is investing in our children. I also think there's a long-term investment. For example, if we invest up front early with our kids, there's less cost later on with what we have to do in social services for people because they're going to have better jobs. And in the tax structure that we have, we rely so heavily on people's earnings and being able to spend that money. So let's increase how much money people make so they can spend more money in our state, and therefore we'll have more tax money.
Okay, all right, thank you. So in light of all that, and your comment that you're not necessarily in favor of new taxes, maybe new taxes on things like marijuana, I'm going to ask a very pointed question just to make sure
New things to tax, right? But not new. Does that make sense?
Yes. So if I were to ask a very pointed question, are you or are you not in favor of a state income tax, what would the answer be? Okay, thank you. Switching gears a little bit to a pretty major social issue that and healthcare issue that changed this past summer, abortion. It is now illegal in the state of South Dakota. Can you expand on your how you would approach that issue in the state of South Dakota if you were elected governor?
Yeah, it's a really, really tough issue, a really sensitive issue, but I can tell you this, the state abortion ban has gone too far. It's gone too far in the fact that rape and incest are not exclusions, and fetal-fatal anomalies right now, not exclusions. I have doctors that have called me that said they can't practice medicine right now. You don't understand, people always say, well, no, that's not an abortion. No, that is an abortion. A DNC is an abortion, okay, at a certain level. That's what they're coded as. They can't do that at certain points. It has to be the life of the mother. Well, what about the life of the mother or her fertility going forward, okay? Having to wait till you're septic and have a fever and are almost dying is not good medicine. Right now we're at that point, okay? That's not safe. I want people to be safe, all right? I also believe that it's 75% of South Dakotans, I believe, you're pro-life or pro-choice, but there's this whole big group of South Dakotans that think there should be limitations or exceptions, right in that middle group. And that's who I'm talking to, is that middle group that sees that it's not just black and white, all right? There's this whole group of, but what if this happens? And right now our law doesn't account for that. I don't think that is safe, first of all. I also just don't think it's humane. I mean, when you ask the governor about the 10-year-old raped child that has to give birth to a baby, that's extreme. That's not right. That is not what I can say that we should be doing as a state of South Dakota, and I know that most South Dakotans agree with me on that issue. It's tough, though.
How would you approach changes? Would you take it through the state legislature, or would you attempt to put it on the ballot?
I think I know the makeup of the legislature. I have not pulled them where they're exactly at. There may be a willingness to move forward on some of those issues, and not others. I'm not sure where they're exactly at. I know it will be difficult through the legislative process. I think the easier path to get what South Dakota stands behind as a state would be through the referendum process.
Does South Dakota have one of the strictest abortion laws in the country?
That's according to what I've heard and what I've seen. It is. It's one of the most restrictive.
What are you hearing from the public? You tour the state and you're campaigning across the state. I can't imagine that this topic doesn't come up regularly. What are you hearing?
Every stop it comes up, and it's women that are not just Democrats coming up to me, and they're saying protect our rights. That's what I'm hearing over and over and over. This is such a personal thing. Government should stay out of the doctor's office, protect our rights, protect women. And it's the men haven't talked much about it, but the women come forward. Every stop I make, there's somebody that comes forward in the crowd and says, please do something. And it's through fear. I mean, it's fear.
Thank you. In your debate a couple weeks ago, there was comments made about you marching with BLM following the George Floyd tragedy in Minneapolis. The governor said shots were fired across Sioux Falls. Is that how you remember it?
Not at all. There's probably people in the room that were there with me that night or that day. It was a permitted protest march that my friends were leading. My friends, Bonnie, Julia, these are good Sioux Falls business leaders. And it was very well planned, and it was very peaceful. And I shook the hand of all the police officers along the way, too, and said, thank you. Thank you for making sure that people's rights are protected here and that they can protest. We got to remember, somebody was murdered by a police officer in broad daylight. We remember that day, and it was a tragic day. And when we walked down, I remember the last speech right down by the police station. I was standing by the now police chief, and we're standing up on a hill together, just having a conversation, watching over what was going on. And it was a great conversation until at one point I pointed out there was a guy wearing a Hawaiian shirt and something. And that was people that were sent in to disrupt the protest and I don't remember their names exactly, but as soon as we looked at him, he goes, just a second, I got to go. And that wasn't the regular protesters, that was other people coming in. Now, what happened later? Is that right? No. When they marched all the way down to the mall, and that wasn't part of what I was a part of. But I also want to say that when people are in pain, people are hurting, leaders step in and stand alongside. That's what I did. I stepped in and I stood alongside my friends in pain. I also did the same thing when I had friends, Muslim friends, and there was a mosque that got bombed. And they had a vigil at Augustana College, and guess what I did? I went to Augustana and stood alongside my friends in their pain. And when there was a synagogue that got bombed, there was a service at Augustana again with the Jewish community in town. And I went with them and stood alongside them in their pain. Leaders do that. The governor didn't go to one of those events. Okay? I stepped into those areas. And it wasn't even because they let me know about them, but I think I would have gone even if I wasn't asked to be there, because you know what? That's what you do with your friends when people are hurting. That is exactly why I was there. And I would do it again today in a heartbeat. Thank you.
I think that's a good segue into the next topic I'd like to discuss with you. South Dakota News Watch a couple weeks ago published a poll that noted that 79% of registered South Dakota voters see civility getting worse in this country. You're giving a state of South Dakota address. What is the state of civility in South Dakota right now? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it getting worse? What's your position on civility in the state of South Dakota?
I can say in the South Dakota legislature, it's still, I would say it's good. I would say I have a fabulous relationship with the leadership on both sides of the aisle, and I have a fabulous relationship with the Speaker of the House, President of the Senate. I've called and talked to each one of them probably this week, okay? So that relationship is good, it's strong, and we don't demonize one another within the legislature itself. Now, at the level I'm playing at, it's a little different. You've seen some commercials about me that seem to come from a different place. The commercials that are being run on me are not from the South Dakota market, I'll just say. And they have the big scary pictures. I mean, I'm even getting stretched wider in some of the print material. I'm fat enough, I mean, but you don't need to stretch me wider and make me look even scarier. I mean, I know that that's not being done in South Dakota. So I bring humor into that to say, we can be so much better though, too, people. Something you might not know about since the last time I talked to you, I was invited to go speak in Florida at a legislative conference. It was, there's different legislative organizations that are exactly what you say. They're nonpartisan. They try to build bridges. And there's a group called Better Angels that's trying to work on civility issues. And they had noticed at another conference that Speaker Gosh and myself actually sat at the same table and ate together. And that we, after the dinner was over, not just the obligatory dinner, but we went to the bar and had drinks together as friends. And people from around the country were watching this. And later we were approached, and we pick on each other. I mean, I zing him, he zings me. It's good fun. But they couldn't believe that we could do that. And I said, of course we can. So we got asked to go speak in Florida in front of we were the keynote speakers for the opening of the session. The minority leader and the Speaker of the House from South Dakota talking about exactly what you're talking about. And people, it was the best session, they said, of the whole thing, but they couldn't believe it. It was like this other planet that we're from here in South Dakota, here's the deal. We go to the same churches, right? Our kids are in the same schools. We play on the same teams with each other. I mean, all these things we hold together. We might be from a different political party, but I don't hate anybody across the aisle. I think so much of our world's become this and that and hate almost. And I pray that we never do that here in the state of South Dakota.
I suspect that you still would agree that maybe I'm wrong, that the temperature is pretty high in the political system.
Oh, yeah, as a whole it is.
You're in Pierre. What would you do to bring the temperature level down? Perhaps it's not with the legislature. Maybe you guys are all getting along just fabulously.
Oh.
You know, what are you going to do to bring the temperature level down and bring back more civil discourse to conversations that are highly charged and highly sensitive?
The first thing is communication and being willing to talk to somebody you disagree with. And I've developed a reputation as being a person that will do that. Having an open door. There'll be often times that people within our own Republican Party here in the state can't. That's where the friction is, by the way. It's inter-party here in South Dakota. So it does exist. That tension, it just doesn't exist between Democrats and Republicans. It exists between Republicans and Republicans, I think, more. But my door will be open. You can come talk to me. Oftentimes, right now, the way it is with the minority office, I will have Republicans from any side of the Republican Party in my door with the door closed, shutting my door going, oh, Jamie, you know, I'm there to listen, right? I'm here to help. But you can't get anywhere if you don't have a conversation first. And right now, the breakdown in Pierre is there's no conversation going on between second and third floor. Second floor is the governor's office, third floor is the legislature. That conversation doesn't exist on a whole. It's more of a, we're going to tell you how to be, instead of a, how can we work together to do this? And that's a very different place that I come from. Is how do we work together to solve a problem? And not pushing my agenda on you, but instead saying, what is it that we can do together to make this state better?
Okay, well, let's talk about what's going right. You know, you commented that the governor will say that South Dakota has the #1 economy in the country. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't seen any evidence for or against that, for that matter. But things are going pretty well. Unemployment is lower than the national average, and we're seeing growth. What is the governor doing well?
The governor, oh man, that's a good question. I should be nice because I'm nice. The governor has definitely she's drawn an exposure to the state of South Dakota that we're a great place to live. All right? And so by her having her ambitions and doing what's going on, she's definitely drawn a spotlight, sometimes for good reasons, other times for bad. But in a certain political mindset, there's no bad press, it's only good press when your name is drawn out. So I don't necessarily agree with that wholeheartedly, but we are on the radar for lots of people, for maybe the right reasons, maybe the wrong, but we're on their radar.
Thank you. The pandemic, a lot of this sprouted from the pandemic. We've all learned some things.
Yes.
As the data has come in, it's told us a story. What did we learn as a state? What did you learn? And when you look back, did South Dakota get it right?
So first of all, I start this question, always that we got to remember that 3,014 people, or maybe even more, because I haven't looked at it in a week, the statistic, have died because of COVID. And that's only the COVID-related deaths that we account for. So before we even go any further in that, that's never getting mentioned, by the way. People died. The other thing that I want to say is people did shut down the state of South Dakota. My kids came home from school. Yours did too. We remember those things. So to say that we didn't shut anything down is not true either. But did we make some different choices in South Dakota? Yes. Now, here's the good and here's the bad as I take it. First of all, you should never politicize a pandemic. There should not be we're the right people, you're the wrong people. We all need to pull together in a time of a crisis like a pandemic. We didn't do that as a nation. There were opportunities that were missed and lost. You should have pulled together. You do that by not politicizing and demonizing any, but you go to the science and you go to what the public safety people are saying and those folks, and you work with them. And so in South Dakota, I've said all along that as a state, we're a very different state in certain parts of the area. So maybe a one-size-fits-all thing for the entire state of South Dakota wasn't right, and we were right in doing that. But I also know there were communities that made different choices, and the communities that made some choices that didn't restrict businesses being open, but made choices to protect people's health fared better than other communities. And I'm looking at Brookings and Vermilion, if you look at the data. Two college towns, very similar. One did a mask mandate in their community, one did not as much. The numbers were higher in the Vermilion area than they were in the Brookings area. So there's interesting things that I think we can learn looking backwards. And backwards is always hindsight. Are there things we could have done better? Yes, there are. Are there things that we did right? Yes. Politicizing it, though, was the wrong answer.
Thank you. I'm going to bring it local before I take it to one more big, important topic that I want to end on purpose. The local topic I'd like to get your thinking on is around the zoning ballot initiative that goes
Thanks.
right to the heart of Holstone Farms. You have indicated your support for the farm and rural community, and the Holstone Farms will certainly bring more demand for their product. Are you in favor or are you against Holstone Farms having a packing plant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota?
Well, thanks for that question. Really appreciate it. You know what? Jobs are important. Markets are important. This is a not in my backyard issue as far as I see it, and certain things people don't like to have in certain places. That being said, there's a process that's being gone through, and a permitting process that was used, and then there's a process that's gone through to make sure that the people of South Dakota now, and not South Dakota because it's a local issue, are going to vote on this. What I like about that process is local control. We've gotten away from that. We've decided that local control is only good when it suits maybe the people with the most power's interest, and that I don't agree with. So I believe in that local control. So you're not going to like my answer on this, but I'm kind of right here on this one. And in the legislature, there's no middle button, unfortunately. It's either yes or no. All you folks that are legislators know that. And a lot of times there's right here, and I'm kind of right here on this one. But whatever the people of Sioux Falls decide is, I'll say that that's what should be, because that's what the people are going to say. And so I'll stand with what the people of Sioux Falls decide to do on that. It's a good non-answer, huh?
It is, but I'm going to ask a follow-up.
You're going to keep going, I know.
Do you think Holstone Farms in Sioux Falls is good for the rural communities and the farmers surrounding Sioux Falls?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You have indicated a strong desire for reconciliation with our Native community. What happened? Why are we now re-reconciling when Governor Mickelson made that effort, 30 years ago? Why are we back here trying to reconcile again? Where did we go wrong, and what are you going to do moving forward if you were elected governor?
It's a fabulous question. First of all, Governor Mickelson didn't get to live out his entire dream of reconciliation. And I know other governors have picked up that mantle as well, and we keep working towards it. But I think it's something that's probably never done, but the focus has to remain. The people that were here first shouldn't be treated last, all right? And so I have a friend named Ed Ironcloud. Some of you might know Ed from Pine Ridge. He came in, he's a real quiet man. He comes and sits in my office and kind of rocks. He said, Jamie, we got to figure out how to make Native Americans be part of the fabric of South Dakota again, instead of just being kind of over here. And I thought that was a very interesting perspective. And so one of the things I really respect about the Native American culture, the star quilt and quilting of people, it's a fabulous tradition. And I think star quilts are just absolute, the artistry and handiwork is amazing. But when you think of South Dakota as a whole, I'd like y'all to picture our state as a giant quilt, a star quilt. And each of those triangles that are made together to make the star are you, me, and everybody else. And if we have good seams that have been sewn well on that quilt, we're going to have a strong quilt and it's going to stand. But if any of those seams are weak, and those seams, the metaphor then is relationships, we're going to be weaker. Right now we have bad relationships with our tribes. And that's not right. It comes down to, again, reaching out and talking and having an open policy. There's been a very combative policy with the current administration and tribes. COVID was part of that and a difference. But I think we have to respect their sovereignty in making a different choice for their people. It's a very vulnerable population. And if they make a different choice than the rest of the state, I think we need to acknowledge that and support that decision that they're making, And then when it comes to how do you work together through our issues, it can't be us as a state going to the tribe and saying, this is what you have to do. It's never worked, it's not going to work. Instead, it's how can we work together to make life better for South Dakota? So Joe Holt, I don't think Karin's here today, but Joe taught me a stance in politics. He said you can do this or you can do this. Now, I was a wrestler and I'm really good at this event. I was really good at the fight. But in doing this, it's harder. You're vulnerable. You open up. But in opening up, we can get to a solution a lot better. And so I've opened up to the tribes. I've been to Pause. And I'm not just going to go there because it's an election year. We've made that quite clear because they've asked me that question. I spent Native American Day and the next day on Pine Ridge, Rosebud. I don't remember how many communities we were able to hit. And their needs aren't any different than actually the rest of the state. They're just more acute. Housing, childcare, education, taking care of the elderly. The same things, just on a different level. So what can we do? We can do this, work together. And that comes down to an attitude again. It's an attitude of not just my way, it's what can we do for everybody. And bringing forward, it's not about me, it's about the state. And so I think that's how I want to approach that. It's so important because all South Dakotans are important and Native Americans are South Dakotans.
Thank you. Well, we're at 1 o'clock, but I want to give you one last chance. Just address the group.
Carrie, I'm not going to make it to MB on time in Mitchell, okay? So I want permission.
Well, Jamie, one last question to you, and I'll let you open up to the group here. But why should we vote for Jamie Smith for governor?
If you want a governor that you know is concerned about you and the entire state, not their ambitions and going forward, you want somebody that is the same today as I'm going to be tomorrow and the next day, I'm sitting in front of you. You've seen me here before. I don't think I've changed that much from the first time I spoke to Rotary to where I am today. You're going to see common sense decisions made by the people that are most affected by those decisions. If it's an ag decision, ag people are going to be in the room making that decision. If it's an education decision, we pull in educators, and we pull in South Dakota educators to make that decision. We will rely on the talents that we have within whenever possible to move South Dakota forward to be the best state that it can be. And I would really appreciate your vote on November 8th to make sure that that is the direction we head as the state of South Dakota, because we are a great people and we can be even better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Cindy. Did they want to ask questions or is it too late?
I'll wrap up.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Jason, thank you for your tremendously thoughtful questions and for creating such a dialogue. Thank you for your service, Jamie, and for spending this time with us. As the clock ticked to 1 and I was standing here, this room was locked in. And so I'm grateful to all of the Rotarians and guests for spending the time today. Next week, we will have our second of a 2-part series on the initiated measure prohibiting new slaughterhouses. Committee chairs, we will meet at that table in just a couple of minutes. Everyone have a great week. Rotary is adjourned.